Good afternoon, students. Welcome again to this discussion for COM3706. This will be a very brief discussion where I'll be giving some guidelines for assignment assignment 2, as well as assignment 3. Please note that your assignment 1 is due on the 18th of April, but please try your hardest to submit by the 17th of April or even before then. Really, we really don't like these emails about extensions, students coming up with soapy stories about why they could not submit. Please try as hard as possible to really take deadlines seriously. Deadlines are important everywhere. If you miss a deadline for either a job application or even university registration, you don't register. So really deadlines are really important, and we really don't want to get any emails anymore about assignment 1. It has long passed the deadline and we can no longer allow extensions because the memo is out. Assignments have been marked with the memo and feedback. So please don't ask us, go and register in the next semester, because in any case, if you haven't done your assignment 1 by now, you're going to fail the module, wasting money and even our time, because we're going to mark a person who's going to fail and come back again. So really, those emails really cause us a lot of stress. Do not send us emails, especially after the 30th. After the deadline was extended to the 30th of April, and you still send emails, like, are you for real? So please don't send us those emails. And for your assignment 2, the due date is 17 April. Give yourself a deadline before the deadline, so that should there be load shedding, should your computer crash, should anything happen, you covered. So please give yourself a deadline before the deadline, because deadlines are there for a reason. We can't just change deadlines. The university sets deadlines for a very specific reason, to cater for exams, for marking, and for feedback. So there's a reason that the university sets these deadlines, and ours is to remind you of these deadlines. We can't just up and change deadlines as we please. So please take deadlines very seriously. So please, for your this assignment, and for those who didn't do that well in your assignment 1, please work hard on this assignment. It also counts 10% towards your year mark. So doing well on this assignment will improve your year mark for those who did their assignments on the last minute. So please, and remember, with assignment 1 is compulsory. So if you did not submit your assignment 1, please don't do this assignment, because you will still be excluded from the exam. So please submit your assignment by the 17th of April. And in this assignment, it's multiple choice questions. Some of these questions are based on the scenario. They're scenario-based questions. Scenario-based question, and basically you are being asked, about concepts, to define or to demonstrate that you know the definitions of various research concepts. So some of these questions are based on scenarios, some are not. For you to do well on this assignment, you need to read up on the concepts that have been asked in your assignment. For instance, if there's a question about content analysis, you need to know what is content analysis. All these concepts are available in your prescribed book. Some of the questions about reliability or validity, please go to your prescribed book first read, and then before you answer the question, don't guess. Don't guess, just read and make sure that you understand the concept. You get better marks, and your year mark will improve, especially for those who did very terrible terribly in their assignment 1. And then, yes, you have to demonstrate that you understand these concepts. So please study in preparation for this assignment and then submit by the 17th of April. And also, please study through the chapters on designing the questionnaire in your prescribed book, because by now you should already have started working on your questionnaire. But then all about assignment 2, the most important thing is to pay attention to the due date and also to study each and every concept in the quiz. Go to a prescribed book, make sure that you understand before you select the right answer. And especially with scenario-based questions, those tests that you really understand the concept, how or any specific methodology, how it's used, and how to test for validity or reliability in your study. So please prepare, and please this time just submit your assignment on the 17th of April. And should you submit late, please don't contact us as a belief. Please do not. Just go on and submit your assignment 3, because fortunately this assignment is not compulsory, but you are advised to do all your assignments to get a better year mark. And also this will also add to your exam results. So please do this assignment on time and submit by the 17th of April. Yeah, I really have to repeat myself here. All right, for your assignment 3, the due date is 18 May. And because this is an exam, so usually when you miss an exam deadline, surely you've written exams before. You know what happens when you miss an exam deadline. You either ask for agrotite, say you were sick. This doesn't apply to portfolios because you know ahead of time. This applies to written exams, those that are written 2-hour exams, those kind of exams. So for this, the due date is 18 May. Please submit by the date 17 May. Give yourself 17 or 16 May, because an exam, should you miss the deadline, you will repeat the module. And also know that the university is also doing away with supplementaries. So you need to do well in your portfolios and even in your assignments. You do need to do well and very well. You need a minimum of 50% and above to pass. Should you get anything below, they are no longer supplementaries, I think from next year. Actually, probably from next semester. So should you get anything below 50, you will have to go and register again for the module. And because this is an exam, so when you miss an exam deadline, usually students write to the exam. There's information in your study material, agro-targeted exam. For those who write like 2-hour exams, they attach the doctor's note or any document as a proof that really on that day or on that hour, they could not write the exam. For the exam portfolio, sick notes don't work unless you were sick for the whole year. I mean, for the whole semester. In that case, they probably will allow you to register for free. Otherwise, you still would not be able to submit an exam in 18 May. Even for assignments, please don't send us sick notes for assignments that you knew about when you registered. Rather go to the exam, to the registration, and ask them to register you for free next semester, because for 3 months or for however many months you were sick and could not. So we do understand illnesses, things happen, the university really does accommodate such, but I mean, for assignments, really, sick notes, 1 day or 2 day sick notes is unacceptable unless you were sick for over a month and then you submit, or 2 months, and then you submit documentation. But for exam, should you be sick, let's say for 3 months or more, You can submit that straight to the exam department. We don't handle exams. Exams are handled by the exam department and not lecturers. So should you miss the deadline for exam, speak directly, get all those contact details for the exam department in your tutorial letters and in your other documents provided by the university, and contact the exam department. So they will help you should you be sick, let's say, and have proof that you were, say, hospitalized or sick for longer than 3 months and could not submit your portfolio on time. So please give yourself a deadline before the deadline, because there's load shedding and a whole lot of things that your computer may just freeze. For last minuters, this really happened during assignment 1. The computer just freezes on the hour at 11 p.m. just before, or a few minutes before you submit. So please give yourself a deadline before the deadline, because what will happen is if you miss a deadline, you fail. You're going to re-register, wasting money, your own money. So please start working on your portfolio now, and you can always work on your assignment 2 and your assignment 3 concurrently, because what happens with questionnaires, you're going to ask people to fill the questionnaires and you don't want to rush them. Say, please complete it in the next hour because you started late. So your questionnaire should be sent out before the end of April to participants, and ask them to, because when the questionnaire comes back, you still need to analyze the data. So you need to give yourself that time. At least by end of April, actually, you should have the questionnaire back in your hands and start with the analysis, because analysis takes a long time, and especially analyzing qualitative data, since you're going to have open-ended questions. But the advantage of this is that the questionnaires are fewer, but a reasonable time really is to have your questionnaires back to you by the end, latest by end of April, so that you take your time to report data, and also so that you don't rush your participants. And after next week, after the 18th of April, and you should actually submit your assignment 2 earlier, so that you start working on your questionnaire. Or after you submit, then start. Like I said, in research, you can always do things concurrently on the side. You are reading on the side, you are designing the questionnaire, because also you need to know how to design the questionnaire. In your prescribed book, you provided a lot of guidelines on how to formulate your questions. And usually for questionnaires, especially Likert scale questionnaires, you're gonna use its statements, where the participants would then click on strongly agree or strongly disagree. So you need to know how to formulate these statements, and in taking into consideration the language and what your study is about. So make sure that your questions would really answer your research questions, or they are relevant and to the topic at hand, and especially they follow the guidelines that you were given for the assignments. For instance, some of the questions will be about social media use, what social media people use, what are the motives for using such social media, and also you have to ask questions about the consequences of use. How much time do people spend on social media, and what are the consequences? And you could use Ferris et al.'s questionnaire to break down addiction into intrusive consequences and emotional consequences, because that is very specific. Again, for your questionnaire, but we'll get back to that later. When you're asking questions, especially your Likert scale questions, when you're asking questions about, for instance, addiction, you need to use an established measure. that has been used by other researchers. You don't just figure it out on your mind what questions you will ask. Usually you have to use what has been used by other researchers, the established scales, and then formulate your questions. If you are testing social media addiction, other scholars have tested with social media addiction, and they've discovered the statements that directly, or items that really measure and capture social media addiction, that is, whether it's intrusive consequences, emotional consequences, or other consequences of addiction. So in your tutorial later 101, for your sorry about that, for your on how to design the questionnaire on data under data collection, in your under assignment 3, you are given guidelines. They're very detailed guidelines on what is expected in your questionnaire. So your questionnaire will be divided into 3 sections, 5. Section A, B, C, D, and E. So you are told what to include in section A, what should be in section B, what should be in section E, what should be in, section C, D, and E. So please just go through your assignment 3 guidelines again and make sure that your questionnaire is structured as such. Again, we had suggested that you use online questionnaires. Google Forms allows you to develop questionnaires online. Even Microsoft Outlook, I think if you are registered with UNISA, you can use Outlook to develop a questionnaire. So you really need to take time to play around with these and select which one works better for you. But I would say Google might work better. But even Microsoft Outlook, because your respondents are likely have to be UNISA students, so those students have access to Microsoft Outlook. Microsoft Forms. So use whatever platform. If you know other platforms, use whatever platform that you are comfortable with. But your questionnaire has to be an online questionnaire. And then the methodology section of the journals, read through that. Just go through the methodology section of these journals and see how researchers report on their data collection methods, and also on their findings, and even on how they interpret the findings. Usually most articles have a discussion or interpretation of findings. So go through that. This will help you and guide you on what is expected in those sections. Although we will have other classes on this, and we will definitely invite you on some of these classes. But should you have any questions while developing your questionnaire, please feel free to ask us. Again, first study this in your prescribed book. It gives you really detailed guidelines and information on how to develop a questionnaire and how to formulate questions. And the questions, you should know, like double questions that have two questions in one. So please go through your prescribed book for guidelines on how to formulate questions and statements for these online questions. And then for questions related specifically to social media use, motives, and addiction, go again through the articles that you were asked to read, and then there you will find guidelines on the types of question that you can use when you're measuring each factor. And then how to distribute a questionnaire. Here, this is up to you on the best. You have to decide what will best work for you. Maybe you have a study group on WhatsApp or on Facebook or any social media platform. Then you can distribute your questionnaire there and ask your peers and the people that you study with to complete the questionnaire. Or you could distribute via Facebook or via any social media platform. On Facebook, for instance, you could say you're looking for UNISA students to complete this questionnaire, and the best place to do that would probably be UNISA social media pages, such as on their Facebook and Twitter. They do have even departmental social media pages, Department of Communication Science. Again, in your sampling, you have to be specific on which how you selected a sample. Did you select people from the Department of Communication, people from your study group, or UNISA students that you know from somewhere else? You really have to be specific. Or students in this module, how did you get their contact details and all of that? Because you could also distribute the questionnaire via email. So be very specific when you describe your data collection methods. And in your portfolio, you have to, this has to be done in past tense, because now you are saying this is how I collected data, because you have collected data. Whereas in your proposal, you tell us what you will do, not what you have done. So here, you're telling us what you have done, so you have to describe your data collection methods and sampling methods in past tense. This is an example from one of the articles, Johnson and Young. Here they're describing how their sampling strategy and how their questionnaire was distributed. They used snowball sampling. So here they say the convenience sample of 242 users, Twitter users, was taken using a snowball technique. Again, the number, you have to tell us the number of participants, but we'll get there later. A message was posted to Twitter with a link to the questionnaire asking users to participate in a Twitter usage study. So this is how these authors distributed their questionnaire. And because their study was focused on Twitter use only, yours has to include all other social media platforms, not just Twitter use, because you have to find out what social media platforms people use, which they use frequently, what are their motives, what are their time spent, and you have to develop questions such as that. What is the time spent, and then the consequences, and what is the media that they prefer the most and why? Because this is a close, you have to have close-ended and open-ended questions. And in your tutorial letter 101 and the assignment 3 guidelines, you are even given an example on how to formulate such open-ended questions. And then the questionnaire items. Okay, so in your study, you are told, for instance, definitely you have to ask people about the consequences. You are asked to examine, to also study the negative consequences of social media use, which have been identified by, according to Ferris et al., as social media addiction. This is just one of the consequences of social media addiction. There could be various other consequences, but you have to limit yourself to the factors identified from the articles you have read, because you use your articles you have read to interpret your findings, whether your findings contradict what these authors have said or confirms is similar to what they have found. So for instance, you would have a factor, let's say intrusive consequences. So here again, for each factor, there are questions related to that factor. There could be 5, 6, 3. In some cases, it could be 1. For instance, when people ask media trust, not social media, but media trust, you just ask people whether they trust the media in South Africa. you know, and which then another question be which of the media platforms or media companies do they trust? You know, and but certain questions have really just one or two items. So here, Ferris et al., for instance, they describe the first factor, intrusive consequences, included 6 items from the intrusion subscale by Kim and Haridakis 209. So here, this is what I was saying, that you don't just develop questions willy-nilly. They have to be based on research, usually what other scholars have done, and these now have become trusted scales. And here they didn't use the full scale, they used the subscale. Again, it's okay to use this as long as you acknowledge the source that you use. For instance, you can say that to test addiction, you use Ferris et al.'s scale, which was based on Kim and Haridaki's subscale, right? And then in this scale, where you test how do you test intrusive consequences, they ask questions such as, would you be productive would you be more productive without social media? Again, those items have to relate to how intrusive social media is in everyday life. So you can think of your own questions test intrusive consequences, and you can also look for this subscale by this author and use it, and then acknowledge it in your when you report your data collection methods that are used. A subscale by Kim and Hatarukis as used by Ferris et al. And then list the factors, the 6 factors that you've used. Obviously, the subscale has 6 items. Not factors, items that test intrusive consequences. And then you should have items for each factor. Other factors would be social motives for social media use, as in the uses and gratifications theory. What are the motives? Again, there are scales for this. You would definitely find this in those articles that you have read. So go to their methodology section again, and also so you could measure social media use. How much time do people spend on specific social media platforms? The time they spend, like per day, per week, the ones they use and the ones they never use, and the reason for that. And then you need to have open-ended questions, again, for each of these factors. And open-ended questions are usually follow-up questions. For instance, once you've tested this in the section where you developed your quantitative questions or the Likert scale questions below that, then you could break it down, like what aspects of your life are disturbed by social media use or suffer due to social media use. Again, here, pay attention to language. Remember, South Africa, we're not an English country, so you have to use very simple words, the words that your participants would understand. So just remember, because like I said, start working on this. Developing a questionnaire takes a long time, and it has to be based on a number of sources. You need to go through a lot of sources. With the sources that you read through those 4 articles, one of them used pure qualitative research, but you can still look through on the type of questions that they asked their interviewees. I think they interviews, and then go to the ones that use quantitative research. 3 of them use quantitative research, and then see how they tested these items and where they got the skills. Okay, I've already discussed this, so I'm just going to show you some examples of questionnaires. These were online, so you can visit these links. This is where I got these questionnaires. This is the first one, using a Likert scale questionnaire. But here, instead of no opinion, most people use neutral. So rather neutral than to say no opinion. So usually strongly disagree to strongly agree. Again, you design your questionnaire how you want, but this can also be one way, especially when you're testing those factors with, let's say, 6 items. So here, this could just be testing one factor, such as intrusive, because then you put your statements like this, and then your participants just click, because it's also, your questionnaire is to be easy to use, even for your participants or respondents. So here they say below are a number of statements regarding tickets to shopping. Please read each one and indicate to what extent do you agree or disagree with each statement. So here the focus is on attitudes to shopping. And then these are the items that measure that. So all these items are just about shopping, all these statements. And then the next one, this one also had close-ended and one open, and then open-ended questions. This is just part, not the whole questionnaire. So the number of close-ended and the number of open-ended questionnaires. Again, these are just examples, and they're testing, different things. These are just business surveys where they test products and customer satisfaction and all such things. So here, in terms of especially in terms of the open-ended question, for instance, this is a follow-up question to this one. So here, there's a few purchases. Which of the following were you most satisfied with? And then they list the products and services. And then they say, in particular, what about this product or service satisfies you most? Then there's a box. And then here they give 500 characters. So you are allowed to limit your participants to a number of characters, because some people can really write paragraphs, or maybe they will even be emotional, especially when they think of social media addiction and maybe how it really affects their lives, their productivity, or even their studies. Some people would feel like I could have gotten 100% had it not been for my social media addiction. I'll be a happier person, with less stress had I not gone on Twitter, so they might be emotional and write a whole lot and up to 1,000 words. So try to limit your participants to a number of words, say about 300 or 250, but try to make sure it's even below that 500 words, because that's a whole page. So try to limit to about 200 or 250, but really try to limit the number of words that your participants can write, again, depending on the platform that you use. Some platform where you design your online questionnaire, some platforms would allow you to limit the number of words or characters that a participant can write, and then once they exceed that number, it will be read. It won't allow them. So, or if it doesn't, your platform doesn't allow for that, then tell your participants, you know, briefly. And also, the answer depends on the question. You know, some questions are triggering or would arouse emotions where people would just start writing a whole lot, but some questions wouldn't be triggering like that. And for some questions, for instance, you need to have other. When you list all the social media platforms, you need to add other there, you know, to find out if there's other platforms that probably you were not aware of that your participants use. So please make sure that you do pay attention to that so that you don't find yourself with very, very long texts. That's all. And this is just a brief overview on a questionnaire so that for those who are designing their questionnaires, that you please start now and please the starting point, the guidelines in your questionnaire, what is expected on each section of the questionnaire. And then also along with that, your prescribed book on how to design the questionnaire and or how to formulate good questions or good statements. So that is in your prescribed book, that is in your questionnaire, gives you the sections that you should have. And should you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. But we will definitely be discussing going forward. We will be discussing questionnaires, how to develop questions, and also please send us your questions or any topic that you would like us to address that you feel that you are struggling with, especially in line with designing a questionnaire or just any topic, especially for your portfolio. You are welcome to send us a topic that you want us to discuss, and we will do that. Again, as I said, we will have a class before end of April, we will discuss feedback, also feedback on your assignments, where you did wrong and how to improve, and also where we can answer your questions about your assignment 3. Other than that, we really wish you all the best with your assignment 2 and also your assignment 3, which is your exam portfolio. So please work hard and start your assignment on time, your exam portfolio on time, because you really don't want to rush your respondents and say, fill this quickly. They will refuse to participate. People are busy, they have their own things. You need to give them days to fill the questionnaire. And also make sure your questionnaire is not that long so that it doesn't take that much time. It must be direct, all the only relevant questions and questions that address what you asked to address or address your research questions. Other than that, thank you. Feel free to contact me whenever you have questions about assignment 2 or any assignments, and you can contact other lecturers as well. The only thing that you should not contact us for is your assignment 1. Please don't contact us for that. Contact university management, contact registration on whether you will be registering free next semester. Other than that, thank you and goodbye.